You know, it's very refreshing to see how the director and the entire team working on Megalobox is able to expand upon our main cast of characters through these kids and see how crappy their life is and kind of how living in these slums is not that fun at all, how it can just really get you down. Especially when you see how these kids have to work together and as a unit to be able to steal these certain items, objects, cameras, whatever. They steal them, and then when they run off and all that to fence them, they manage to get some form of stimulants to be able to forget their worries of life and all of that. And it didn't try to do the standard, oh, that's not what you think it is, that's definitely not quote-unquote anything to make them just like in a loopy state. And I do like how this series didn't try to kind of say that wasn't. And it adds some more, I guess, immersion with this series and allows us to see how bad this life really can be for our characters living in this area. And I mean, just the setting alone, when you just see the way the setting is to the, like, you know, the backgrounds and stuff, it is absolutely beautiful quality, like legit quality. I want to give compliments to the artist that is working on this series. The backgrounds just look so good. I mean, there's just so many little details here and there you could see through individual scenes, especially the car ride with Joe and all that, and Nabu, I hope I'm saying his name right, when they're just driving and all that, and you just see behind the vehicle, and you see the different stuff going on around them. It's very lively. You could see this, like, community, this world that is just moving on alongside of them, and it doesn't feel like it's just there just for a background scene alone. It actually feels like the world is moving alongside these characters. So just compliments to the series for really making me get immersed while watching this episode. I seriously, it's rare to see something like that really just makes me like, holy crap, they're really going down into the nitty-gritty of the entire series. They're not just focusing on the character designs, they're focusing on everything, the entire picture, the world, and all of that. And also the details of the world too, just making us question what is going on here without really giving us the answers, and also not even having to say the question for we could start asking that question in the first place. So let's talk about the children. They were the main central focus of this episode, and they were trying to be incorporated with our other two main characters. And now we finally have, like I could say, our third main character being added into the cast. I mean, all the children I'm going to assume is going to be important, but the one child that stands out amongst the entire group is Sacho, which is going to probably be someone that's going to be designing Joe's gear from this point forward because of his knowledge. It's very obvious that these children are very intelligent. They have definitely the skills to survive in this world, especially if you're living in the dumps like this. You're going to have to figure out a way to get by and survive, have food and all that, and that's what they had to do. They had to steal any way they could to be able to have food or be able to survive in this rotten world. And you could see that one of our characters, Sacho, which was introduced, he takes a liking to Joe. He takes a liking to Megalo Boxing, and he wants to help Joe reach the top. And he even asked Joe in this episode, Joe, you know, could you carry me? Like, can you take me with you throughout, you know, the ranks of Megalo Boxing? And when you see this, it makes you wonder why the kid is asking that. And you can obviously put point A and B together to realize it has something to do with his hat, because there was multiple instances throughout this episode to where he was trying to protect his hat. For instance, when his hat fell off and then Joe was giving the hat back over to the boy was like, don't touch my hat and all that, and he put it back on. He was very defensive of it. And then you also have the segment at the end where he's getting interrogated and beat by the adults and all that to what happened to the gear. You know, he also was worried about his hat too. So his hat is something very important. It's something very special to him, and if I had to assume anything, I want to assume it has to do with his parents. Maybe, you know, whatever happened to his parents, and he maybe wants to find out what happened to them. That could be the reason why he wants to journey alongside of Joe and Joe's manager to be able to reach up the ranks to figure out what was the reason in the first place that they're gone. Maybe he feels like he's abandoned. That could be the story too. Maybe he was abandoned by his parents. Maybe his parents just threw him under the bus and all that, and then left him to live in, like, you know, life, the good life and stuff, because they made money. As we know that, you know, this life they're living in right now is very different from the people that are participating in Megalo Boxing, so we could obviously kind of put this together as well. So we don't really know what's going on with Sacho. We don't know if his parents abandoned him. We don't know if his parents died. We have no idea, but this was the question I was wondering. But at the same time, it also makes me wonder, how is this kid so intelligent? Now, don't get me wrong. There can be many intelligent kids at a young age. I'm not saying there can't be. I'm just saying the way the kid was able to tinker with objects and understand things about gear and all that to the remote control mouse and stuff, obviously this kid is extremely intelligent, and his upbringing was definitely different from the normal kids, or the kids we've already seen around him. They acted smart, yes, but they weren't like his level. So obviously Sacho had a different life, and I'm going to assume that maybe his life, maybe he was a part of the rich at one point, or middle class, whatever, and maybe something happened to his parents, and now he's been thrown into the slums and he's living day-to-day life trying to figure out a way to just survive with his friends. That could be a potential possibility, but whatever the case may be though, he definitely knows a lot about gear technology and also the stuff going on when it comes to just making robots and stuff. So I wonder where that's going. That's a big question I have. And then on top of that, I also want to mention the world building with the other fighters and stuff, and where Joe currently stands in this series. So Joe's at the bottom. Like, he's at the direct bottom of the list of fighters for Megalo Boxing, which makes perfect sense. And, you know, I'm really happy with this because most anime would typically skip this and make like a really quick montage, like, you know, a minute and a half montage, just to skip it to get into the higher up tier stuff, because it would just be easier, and, you know, it'd allow people to get on with the story quickly. But I like how this is a very slow burn. This is a series that's a slow burner, and it's building things up, especially with Joe's first match, his official match, and he's got to take down 5 opponents to be able to even be able to get into the top tier ranks for Megalo Boxing and stuff. So I do like that fact that, you know, they're not trying to rush the early stage fights that are beginner level, and they're trying to take their time with it. And that is something I appreciated with this episode, the conflict. That was what was driving Joe the entire time throughout this episode, was figuring out a way to get ready, have his proper gear together, to be able to fight the first opponent he has to go up against, to be able to qualify to even get into Megalo Boxing in the first place. And he has to start from the bottom and work his way to the top. I also do want to mention that at the end, which, you know, Sacho actually joining the group, most likely I've had to assume the manager is going to be the guy that's going to be giving pointers and stuff, tips and stuff to Joe, helping him out with his fighting style, figuring out if someone's doing, you know, fake outs and stuff like that. That's probably what the manager's role is going to be. Well, I feel like in the long run, you know, Sacho, he's probably going to be the person that's going to be the tinkerer. He's going to be the repair guy. He's going to be the person, you know, messing with Joe's equipment, making sure his equipment operates properly. Something like that is telling me what role that character is going to have, which I think is really cool, and it gives them their own important role to play in the upcoming fights. Now, I do want to admit that I'm very surprised with how small our cast is with this series. I didn't really think about it until this episode happened, but we don't really have a big cast of characters. I mean, yes, all the other children, I guess they could be potentially important, but for now, we technically only have really 3 characters and all of that. And then the antagonist, which I guess you could say would be the mafia leader, because he's in the background. If, you know, Joe doesn't do something right, then they're all going to, you know, be gone. So, I mean, when you think about it like that, I like how the cast is very small. It allows us to develop these characters and allows us to grow closer to them, and it doesn't feel like it's a bloated cast, which a lot of series have this type of problem when it starts going forward with its story. They just start introducing a lot of characters, and there's not a lot of time to really develop them and allow us to care about them. Now, speaking of characters in general, I want to talk about the manager. At the beginning of the episode, we get to see how he scrambles into the registry to be able to register Joe as a Megalo Boxer, and you can see from the way the scene was done that it was very awkward for him to even walk into that building. Now, a lot of people that did see him, they didn't act like he was in trouble or anything. Like, they didn't, like, stare at him or whatever, but he was being very awkward, which I want to assume that he has some form of complicated relationship, either with a person in there, or he didn't want someone to see him. But it's clear as day with the way he was trying to hide himself and sneak in and all that, there was some form of complicated history he has, which makes me enjoy his character. There's a mystery there with him, and I wonder what's going on with that, because we do know that he's been in some shady business. We know for a fact that he's fallen in deep with the mafia, and he's having to pay back a debt, which we don't really know the reason for that in the first place. We don't really know what drove him to be in this corner where he's at now, but regardless, it doesn't seem like he is necessarily nothing but a shady man, or a man that's just in it for the money, or whatever. He definitely has a reason to be here, maybe even a noble reason or a bad reason. That's still yet to be explained, but at the very least, though, we do know that his origin, he did not start off in the underground world being a shady person. He actually was someone that was legit, a trainer and all that, and was a part of real Megalo Boxing, clearly from the way that first scene of the episode was done. We have a little quick scene with Yuri, and we can see that Yuri also has been changed by Joe. For instance, Yuri is deciding to train harder than he ever has. Like, he was training, he thought he was done training and all that, he was walking away, and then all of a sudden as he was walking away, he remembered the words that, you know, Joe said to him, and he's like, is that your true Megalo Boxing? And the man turns around and gets ready to, you know, train again, which proves that the man is pushing himself even further to be able to get stronger, and that shows that Joe has had an everlasting effect on him. Those words he said really affected him in that moment, and maybe subconsciously, maybe Yuri is hoping that Joe does come to his ring, his stadium, to fight him. Maybe that is what he really wants. So let's talk about the fight at the end. So when it comes to the action, I want to point out that many might say that the gear that was kind of hyped up a little bit to be, you know, Joe's main gear, it got destroyed. It seemed more like paper mache than anything else, and I do admit it was, but at the same time, we gotta remember a little detail that was stated in this episode, that the person Joe was fighting, he had metal fist, and these metal fists, he didn't have proper boxing gloves on, which you normally see on the fighters. And so, obviously, if you're going to hit someone with these solid metal fists, you're going to dent things. You're going to hurt things. That's going to hurt a lot more than a glove fist. And so when you see that, it makes sense why when he was hitting, you know, Joe's gear, it broke apart because there was no glove there. So I do like how that was explained. I know many might have missed that detail of saying like, oh, whoa, the gear must have been kind of crap for it to just be destroyed that easy, and maybe it was kind of crap. That could be a reason, but I believe more along the lines of why it broke so easy was because of just how the man was not using any gloves and he was just going in with his fist, which raises another question. There's two different options here, or actually three options that could potentially happen, or maybe four. Whoa, actually there's a lot more options than I realized. Okay, so anyways, we have one option that was being implied, that maybe Junk Dog Joe, he might go into Megalo Boxing without gear on, which would be completely insane. Like, the man going in trying to go up against official boxers with no gear on, I don't even know if they would allow that. I legit don't know if they would actually allow someone to walk in there with no gear on. I wonder if he'd be disqualified. I'm very curious about that. That really, I don't think has been properly explained. And then, number two, another option is maybe the kid, you know, Sacho could fix the gear that broke in this episode, since it seems he does have a good mind and to be able to make things, he could potentially fix the gear for, you know, Joe to be able to use it. Or he's going to put the two gears together. For instance, the original he had in the first two episodes, and then the one he got in this, he could put it together, make his own special armor piece for him. That's another possibility. Or a fourth, he just makes something completely brand new. So we have four options right there that could potentially happen with Sacho being a part of the team now, and I do wonder what direction they're going to take with it. But anyways, that's about it when it comes to this episode of Megalobox. It was a fantastic episode, and it continues to be one of my favorites of Spring of Anime 2018. I look forward to every Thursday for this series, and it's kind of crazy now that I think about it. I mean, I'm looking forward to things almost every single day, you know, in the week. I mean, I'm looking forward to Wednesday because of Steins Gate. I'm looking forward to this because, you know, Megalobox. And then, you know, we also have chapter days on Friday. Saturdays, we have Darling in the Franxx. And yes, I know for a fact everybody's a little bit salty with that latest episode, but we have, you know, Darling in the Franxx to look forward to and stuff. And that's something I really, really enjoy. And then, you know, after that, we have Food Wars on Sunday. And then Monday, we have more chapters and stuff. And then Tuesday, even though I complain a lot about it, it's still fascinating to be able to analyze and break down Tokyo Ghoul Re. So, I mean, just like, there's a lot of days to look forward to this season. So I'm very happy about that. Very good stuff this season. I'm having a lot of fun. But this series in general, if you still have yet to start it, stop what you're doing, give it a shot. It's a fun anime to watch. Okay, if you like my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. I love you guys. Chibi out.